every city, every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, but also somatic shapes. These are the moats, we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, you know, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate somatic patterns, and clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars.
So here's one in Portugal, one of the star forts, the huge amount of terraforming around it. Amazingly, this one is still in pretty much pristine condition compared to the destruction of most of the ones you find today.
Piano notes. As you can see, these are all somatic. A sharp, B, C, and they're all these somatic shapes. These are cathedral windows, this line here. These are, you know, rose windows, are all in cathedrals, and these are somatic patterns, which are created through frequency, so either harmonics or intention. Down here we have, this is our DNA, so these are fractals or somatic patterns of our DNA. This is what we get when it's good intention. We get these perfect, you know, geometrical shapes, and when it's bad intention, we get this goo. So this is like a polluted river, and this is like a clean river. And so if we tie this back to the cathedrals that have got these windows, and they're connected to the ether with all these spires, and then what else do we have in cathedrals but these things called organs, right? I mean, we have these things called organs in our body, and we just, the DNA, you know, somatic is the same as some frequencies in these windows. So what this is all looking like is these are you know, healing factories, or not even healing, wellness, I guess, just to keep people well. They're pumping out frequencies.
You can literally Google any city of the old world from the 1600s and back, and it will come up in these star fort shapes, and every single one is like Venice, and there's canals everywhere. Those were the highways of the time, but they were also so much more, with all of like this hidden technology, infrastructure, and buried history.
And you can see this one again, always these big cathedrals in the cities, but here's one of the stars, right, or batteries attached into the wall. And there's even another one of these more sort of irregular shaped ones out here, but they always have these stars attached, you know, to these star cities. And again, the canals, and you know, you can see this is a big island kind of thing as well. But the thing is with water's free energy. You know, you float a boat, you use the current, right? The current.
How about the water wheels? What are water wheels? Water wheels are harnessing electrical power. Electricity just as much as it was the physical power and mechanical power that they used out of it. What's to say that windmills and water wheels weren't actually generating hydroelectric and wind power a few 500 years ago?
This is a drawing. This is New York City, right? Battery Park is because this is what was there, a battery. Hello, and welcome everybody. And Bernie has made it for the beginning. We thought he might be a late starter, but he has turned into Super Bernie, and he's with us while he's driving down the road by the looks of it.
I'm driving down the road, exactly. So I love you guys, and this is going to be an awesome show. I'll let you guys continue while I watch from YouTube, and I will be rejoining in 15, 20 minutes when I'm home.
Awesome.
Cheers.
We'll see you then. Hi, Amber. See ya. Alrighty, hello to everyone in chat. I've got all the usual amazing people here. I won't go through them all because there's lots of you. And today we have Cameron and Phil back, and I had Cameron and Phil on my channel, and this of course is my channel, so I don't know what I'm saying. But we're going to talk orgonite and earth energies, and how we can basically use the ethereal energy, the natural energies that are around us to improve our lives, right? So maybe use the good energy to keep the bad energy away. So how are you guys? Thanks for joining.
Doing well, mate.
You go, Cameron.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, always a pleasure. And I'm sure this is going to be an awesome show. So who wants to start off? Does someone want to give us a little brief explanation of what you guys do, what you make, why you do it, and how you're going to save the world?
You want to go start, Bill?
Sure. I got started with this about 4 years ago. I had incurred some injuries and I wasn't getting any answers from doctors and all that. So I just went ahead and started looking on my own, and I came across tensors and orgonite, and tensor rings in the beginning were a little more feasible due to the price of resin and all the stuff that comes with orgonite and all. So I started off making tensor rings, and about 9 months in it, I got really deep into it, and I started discovering my own frequencies that I found measurements on and everything. And yeah, I just ran with scissors with it, and I kept up with the orgonite, and I make a lot of that too. I love it. It's where my heart is, and to help heal. And I started doing Reiki as well about 3 years ago, and been keeping up with that as well. It's a beautiful thing, helping others, and everyone needs a little help every now and then. So gotta have people available to do that thing.
Yeah, indeed. And just as a side point, if anyone out there does need help, always ask. Basically, there's lots of people who want to help, and we recently had we lost someone in the flat Earth community, and basically the reason was that he didn't ask for help, and so we don't know if that could have changed things. But if you are going through a bad time, there are lots of cool people around, so don't be a stranger. And what have you got to say, Cameron, for a little intro?
I certainly know the dark side of that kind of depression. I was working for Telstra. My story started working for Telstra, working in the shops and all this sort of bits and pieces. Basically, ended up irradiating myself at that point, and ended up ballooning out to I think it was about 117 kilos, and just I wasn't in a good space. I was on the verge of suicide myself at that point. Just not in a good place at all. Ended up going down many rabbit holes, starting to open up my own mind into what was going on with what was happening in the world, realized that things like 9/11 and JFK weren't what we were told, and ended up having many sort of mindset shifts over the course of about a 4-year period, and starting to take control of my health again. They then put a 4G tower up the road from me, and at that point I actually became a bit of an insomniac. I was in bed sort of 10-12 hours a day, but I wasn't actually hitting REM sleep. And a friend of mine showed me a little phone buddy, sort of smaller version of something like smaller version of a little plate of orgonite like this that was on the back of his handset. And so that then led me down the road of looking for Dr. Wilhelm Weich's research, and eventually into Flynn Sperling and other researchers in the area, and making my own pyramids and stuff like this to try and help me with my sleep. So I ended up making a couple of pyramids about the size of the small to medium-sized ones here, and stuck one on either side of my bed. And within about 2 weeks, I was actually sleeping again. So it was something that just personally helped me shift immensely, because you imagine what it's like not actually sleeping for nearly a year. Even though you're constantly tired and in bed, just not actually rejuvenating, not actually going through the process of actually sleeping. Not a good place to do that. So that's how I sort of got into it, and I've just been gone down rabbit hole after rabbit hole since then into things like psychic geometry, and basically just healing practices. I just got it to Reiki myself. When was that, last Tuesday, I think. So I've gone through the attunement process now, and I've just got to keep studying and practicing that. So that'll now weave its way into what I'm doing with orgonite and intention work.
I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if we'd lost it.
Sorry, the rooster was crowing. So if you hear farm noises, guys, it's because I'm on a farm. You sent me some anklets, Cameron. Like I mentioned that, everyone seemed to wear anklets, and then you went, all right, I'll make you some. So with those, like with these, tensor, I guess they're tensor rings. Is that what they're called? Is that to do? That's to do with the length, right? So is the length of the copper, if you get that exact, then that equals a frequency, basically? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So by taking your digital particles, you can get them down to very, very precise measurement, up to 100th of a millimeter. And the idea being that you've got to get it to that exact measurement in order for the geometry of that measurement to actually be resonant with a particular harmonic. So, for example, the sacred qubit is a harmonic, I think it's a harmonic fifth of the speed of light.
All right. So you're just a little bit low there. Have you got a microphone or just lean forward? Let us look up your nose, mate. It could just be the connection. Let us know if there's a problem with the sound or anything, guys. Yeah, cool. So this is what we talk about a lot is frequency, right? Everything's frequency. We know the jewelry and crown jewels and all this kind of stuff. So basically wearing this kind of jewelry, these proper tuned tensors, that can affect our health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're breaking up there a bit, Cameron. You go, Phil.
Yeah. Basically, when you go to certain qubit cuts, you're getting to exact lengths, and there's fraction qubits, which can be worn as anklets or bracelets and all that. But whenever you get to specific frequency cuts, you can lay them over the back of your head if you're laying down, or lay it on the crown of your head or whatnot, and the energy will just go right through you, and it'll help line you up and get you taken care of in whichever ways necessary, or it'll help get you attuned and your body aligned up. And it really does a great thing for the body. I mean, if you're using something like 144, I believe that resonates with hydrogen, I believe, or something like that, and it's really good to get the pH. If you put the tensor ring on your head, you can actually I've done it with my wife and my brother-in-law, where I put the ring on their head, and automatically they're like, my saliva tastes different. They can notice that pH adjustment in the body naturally, and actually really immediately, within seconds of actually having it placed on your head.
That's very interesting, because I've been, for about the last couple of weeks, I've been having this different taste in my mouth too, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And of course, I've been using tuning forks for the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, right. That's very interesting. So, because I was sort of under the impression that a frequency would be, I don't know what I was thinking, a body frequency or a muscle, but you're talking about actual molecules, if you want to call it that, hydrogen and oxygen. It's actually affecting those on a molecular level, is it?
Yeah, it changes the spin rate. It makes it accelerate a lot quicker, and it's naturally getting the molecules aligned to the natural balance, natural order, if you will, of the way it should be.
Nice. Wow. And
pretty much anything.
Sorry, you go.
So, say for example, you take a tensor ring and put it over a piece of fruit, it'll be infused with water that's within that fruit with more infused, and actually, the stimulated hydrogen within it to its highest point. So it's going to be more beneficial for you when you consume it. You can also change the flavour of a cheap bottle of wine into a really aged, nice quality bottle of wine. That's another example that people use. But yeah, pretty much anything that you would consume, be it fruit or meat or anything like that, if you've got that kind of energy building in the back of what it's talking about or something in food, it'll keep and preserve all of that food and also imbue it with better natural energy for when you actually consume it.
Cool. Yeah, we're still having a few audio issues with you there, Cam. So I'm not sure if you can.
I'm not sure if there's something around your microphone, brother, but
you're just on a laptop, are you?
No, on the.
Oh, there.
Yeah, you sound a lot clearer there. That's better.
Oh, okay, I didn't actually do anything. Is it still good?
Yeah, you sound better. You sound a lot better.
It looks like when you're turning your head to the now it's opposite, isn't it? To the right, it gets a bit better. That way.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. It may just be a theory. We'll see how we go. We'll all. I know what you need. You need to put a piece of organ. You've got a piece of orgonite there. That will definitely improve the connection.
Balance out.
Okay, let's see if that works.
All right. It's not that there's interfering, is it? Maybe it's because your whole room's like, woo.
I've got Orgonite all over.
So a lot of the Orgonite we see is in a pyramid shape. Is that just to direct the energy? Because I had a chat with Dr. Sam, the Bosnian pyramid guy, last week, and obviously that's a pyramid, and they've done all these tests on it, and that thing is emitting Orgon energy, and it's also got a beam of 24 hertz shooting out the top of it. Is there a correlation apart from the geometry there?
They're known as holy hand grenades.
Just
when
the
you're
geometry you
making
think that helps the Orgon?
The geometry does make a big difference though, because when you're making them, you want to use a phi ratio measurements, and the apex is the focal point, and that's what's directing the energy. So varying on, well, what I've sort of learned as my method of doing it is how big you're using the apex point is how big you're making the. Sorry about that. That's how big you're making the energy column right here. And whenever you have made it as a holy hand grenade, you're using 4 quartz points at the cardinal points on the Orgonite, which is compass points, and that draws in the energy, and it's sort of making that constant cleaning cloud and getting rid of all the bad energy and everything. And at the bottom of mine, I love to use a lot of tensor rings and neodymium magnets, as it bubbles out the effect a lot more. And in correlation with that, I try to use a violet ray wand to activate a little more of an energy field in the Orgonite. In the bubble tech community, that's where I learned about the violet ray wand and everything. And I'll see about plugging it in right now in a little while and get it buzzing. It makes such a nice energy, and it reduces inflammation in the body. And the Darcinovial wand was actually made to regrow hair and stimulate the skin and regrow stuff and everything. So it does this other thing when there's a certain frequency they make them at, and it just activates this life force energy and everything. And it's really an incredible thing. I'll see about sending you a link. That way you can look into getting one if you'd like. Talk to the people that run that company. See if we can't get one your way.
Cool. Awesome. And also the links for Cameron and Phil are both below in the comments. Cameron's in Australia, Phil's in the USA, so get in contact if you want more information. And there's lots of groups as well where they teach you how to make this stuff as well, don't they? On around Facebook and that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just on the pyramid. Just on the pyramid shape as well. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you.
We've lost him. Now we can hear you. Now you're back. You just zoomed out.
Okay. Sorry, the connection must be terrible. Just on the pyramid shape, you were saying about the apex point as well.
Are you back?
That is the shape that actually draws in a vortex of energy that pulls that in from the tip and draws it down into the middle. So it's the geometry of the pyramid that is doing that as well. And I believe Matt from Electroculture, Electro Elevate or whatever it was, I forget the name of it. He was pointing that out when you were discussing that's the one, yeah. When you were talking about the Nubian pyramids, it's the actual point that is what's creating the vortex that brings that energy down in a phi ratio.
Yeah, that apex really makes a difference, and that's why you always want to put that copper at the top, and it really does a lot for the cleansing. And something I've always been told is you want the copper on top.
Chevron's disappearing. Okay, we're back. So it's the shape, the angle of the apex creates the geometry, basically the equation of the vortex, so you can get pi vortex and phi and all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
It's based on the angle.
Yes, the appropriate angle gives it a different
side angle
energy field to it. Yeah. Go ahead, Cameron.
So the
Yeah, right. So has
difference
anyone
in
tried
the angle,
Yeah.
difference in the angle of the like Nubian pyramid being 76 degrees, they're the taller ones, as opposed to the Giza pyramids or Cheops, as you would perhaps know from Egypt. The angles being different like that create a different type of energy field that's associated with different resonant frequencies. So I think I pointed out in the last one, the Nubian resonates with the crown chakra, and the Giza works with the heart. Just slightly different effects on the energy field that's actually being emitted and their attributes. And so you can custom make the application of the pyramid for, say, growing food or, preserving food or whatever the kind of application is, depending on the actual construction of the pyramid. And so the reason that we use the pyramids in Orgonite is to not only make benefit of the alternating materials, but then also to then have the geometry involved and have an effect on the overall product as well.
So are people making Orgonite in different angled pyramids, like for different applications?
The specifics of each pyramid can be, it doesn't have to be specifically used in that regard, because they're putting out beneficial energy simply due to their composition. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to have specific for that. But noting that the Nubian pyramid has that particular signature will have an effect on the crown chakra. And so I'll give an example, is that there are instances where I'll have given people a particular piece and they weren't necessarily ready for it, at least from a duality viewpoint, in that there's bad and good. If you're coming at it from unity consciousness, you sort of look at it, oh, well, this instance of quote unquote negativity that has then manifest in my life after receiving this Orgonite pyramid, it's actually giving you an opportunity to address that and look at the shadow work. And if you reject that kind of work, when the pyramid is in your presence, then you're going to have a bad time, and it's going to have more of an effect on what's actually happening in your life, because it's giving you an opportunity to look at your shadows. And then that would be the 76-degree pyramid that's working on the crown chakra. So it's working at that higher level of your shadow work. And so if you've got unresolved issues, it's going to point those out. And if you're not willing to work or aware of that was in fact happening, it's going to then push you away and cause other issues in your life, which you'll then view as negative, because you're looking at it through that duality viewpoint, rather than going, okay, this is a lesson to learn from.
So we're going to be crackling. Are you talking through your earpiece? Have you got like a microphone plugged into that earpiece?
Yes.
Are you talking into? Have you got like is there a microphone on those? You just unplugged it? Yeah, maybe unplug it and see if that works a bit, because it sounds like the connection in it is crackling.
Oh, right. I need to get a new set.
Are you there, Phil? Is anybody?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm right here.
Gosh. Am I live? Phil, okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some horrible crackling noise going on.
All right, if anyone wants to set.
I'm almost home.
All right, so
7 minutes. Sorry, guys, but I'm listening. An excellent conversation.
Yeah, with the Orgonite, the great thing is it works a lot like electroculture in that aspect that it really enhances the plant growth. It really has this overall benefit of like everything. I mean, you don't have to water the ground so much, and it just revitalizes that plant into a whole new substance almost. It's just like phenomenal how it works in that aspect.
Orgonite is essentially like this electroculture. It's the energy of the environment being brought in and utilized for plant growth and for life stimulation.
Yes, essentially yes. And then when you gift to the ground, like with harmonizers and tensor rings, it's a lot like electroculture in that same aspect. When it's grounding out, it's emitting all that good stuff into the soil and allowing for the beneficial growth. And in many ways, in regards, like whenever Slim Sperling would gift agricultural harmonizers, which were a lot larger, those would essentially do the same thing. I mean, you have all this regrowth and all this huge difference in the plant structure and the water structure and everything all together. Like both Orgonite and tensor rings do so much for water benefits. It's just really phenomenal how this can do this much.
There's an instance.
Frequency, right?
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just interrupting quick because I am rushing home to get back on with you guys and show you a couple of the different Orgonite pieces I have, and then get your guys' input on it and whatnot. But yeah, sorry for interrupting. Can't use up all my bandwidth, so I'll be rejoining in 10. Epic show so far, guys.
Just on the agricultural harmonizers that Phil was talking about, there was an instance where Slim Sperling.
All right, Cam, what were you saying?
Slim Sperling took an agricultural harmonizer and put a couple of them around a field. I believe it was called the McCurry Farm. That was basically a sweet corn farmer, had acres and acres of sweet corn, everywhere. But it was a massive aphid infestation that was running through the whole county, and so he put these agricultural harmonizers out and started playing music through them for a period of time, and it basically caused the life cycle of these aphids to basically be cut. The following season, then there was a massive amount of ladybugs that then started coming through and eating all of the husks of the aphids that had burrowed their way into the corn, and basically saved this farm from going under. Because there was nothing that was working around the county other than what Slim had managed to bring in and do with this harmonizer. It was a really interesting story. But there's other instances of that as well, where there was a New Zealand company that was basically about to go under because the product was being basically stopped at the port. The port was rejecting the food at the entry point because it was rotten when it was actually got there. He then installed a few of these small harmonizers into the ships that were transporting it, but also tensor rings all across all of the water lines everywhere within the greenhouses and stuff that they were using, and over all of their catchment tanks and stuff like this. And it got to a point where this company not only turned itself around, but there was prestige sort of Japanese restaurants that were trying to buy all of their stock beforehand at 50% above the market rate, just so that they could secure that particular product.
Wow. And that's after it's been grown, that's having that effect. Wow,
no, so the rings and stuff were having that effect over all of the water, and they were growing. And so the harmonizers on the boat were keeping it fresher for longer, getting rid of all the pests and stuff like this. And, there was no pests. The guys at the ports were looking at all of their food and going, this is, we haven't seen this level of pests. There's basically none in these shipments. What's going on? And, they had to point out that it was a harmonizer that they had on the ship. But, not only did it prevent the insects and the decay along the trip, but they were using all of these devices in the actual growth process over all of their water that they were using to, grow the food itself. And so it was growing to, incredible vitality and bigger size and stuff like this, and was being praised because of it.
Cool. So is that a harmonizer, is it, Phil?
Yes. Yeah, this is a larger, not the full cubit size, but this is a larger size harmonizer, and this will cover a substantial area. Something about this size will cover about close to, what is it? I want to say it's 24 kilometers or something like that. I want to say, I can't remember exactly in kilometers, but I want to say it's something like a little more than 15 miles. It's somewhere around there, I want to say. But they do a very good job. It also varies on the twist whenever you're making the AccuVac, whether you're doing it depends what frequency you use then again, but if you're making a single wire twist, it gives it a lot of polarity, which gives it a positive and a negative, and you want to draw it up and out. That way you're just pushing out a positive frequency when it's going that toroidal motion of constantly cleaning and everything.
So basically that makes what electromagnetic fields, does it?
It emits frequencies of well, this one right here is made in my master qubit, and this one actually cleans. It does a lot of cleaning work. It does a lot of like for EMF and EMR, a lot of that smog. It cleans it out, as well as this cleaning out the Earth's natural, like the bad pests and all that kind of stuff in nature and everything as well. It does a lot. This one's sort of this frequency I have right here. I made it's go-to for me for a lot of different things. It's great for structuring water. Like if you had one of these over like your water container, it would just do phenomenal things on cleaning that water out and everything. And if you have it outside, even if you actually, something that Slim Sperling did was he would play the sound of a whale, and that would supposedly make it rain. And I haven't actually, I need to get an audio track and try that out myself. I haven't done it. But what I've done with these is I would put them on a sprinkler outside, and it would cause a random showering effect of rain in my area. I've done it a handful of times over time, and well, my kids got a little bigger, so I couldn't put them out there so easy because they'll end up picking it up and thinking it's a ball and playing with it. So
Yeah,
they love the tensor tools.
I'm sure they do, man. Yeah, someone asked before about how it affects water. So you can structure water just with these harmonizers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, harmonizers and tensor rings, triskelions, they all work phenomenally on restructuring water. Even this orgonite really does a really great job at it too.
Cool. One thing I want to ask, like before you were talking, Cameron, and obviously you told your story, and you were saying that the orgonite puts you in a, makes you basically face your, shadow self, or these blocks, we call them. So these energies basically you can use to help your, help growth, help clear yourself, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just in regards to the thought that Phil had in regard, not Phil, Matt from Electroculture, just in regards to the garden real quick, the light spectrum that the plants are emitting is lacking, and so therefore in the ultra violet spectrum or the infrared spectrum, they're emitting different sort of issues that are attracting all the bugs in the area. The harmonizers, if you think of them like a little sun, because the rings are formed in that toroidal configuration, it's emitting a bright white light in those spectrums, and so it's actually balancing the plant growth as well. So yeah, I mean that's one of the other benefits of having these tools in the garden. In regards to shadow work, yeah, it comes down to the crystals as well as the different frequencies of the tensor tools that are involved with the orgonite as well. For example, different shapes, such as, I don't know if you can see there, this one here is actually an alchemical symbol known as the Philosopher's Stone. Harry Potter fans may be aware of this one. This one is one of those type of alchemical stones that's going to help bring forth, alchemical symbols that is going to help bring forth, shadow work that is going to be, needed to look at from your emotional bodies. But ultimately, you need to be aware that certain things, may manifest as a quote unquote negative, but they're a test. They're a form of shadow work that is going to make you a better person in the long run, that you're going to learn from these experiences. So as long as you're working with these tools and know that that's sort of what you need to be doing with them, rather than just kind of pushing that work away and ignoring it, it's going to help in that regard then, because you're actually going to be able to then go through and actually clear those blockages, because that's essentially what it is. It's an energetic blockage somewhere within the chakra system.
Yep, cool. And someone just asked, what's the best way to structure water if you don't have an orgonite? Obviously tensor rings, but I saw someone the other day, actually, they just bought something off eBay, and it's just they said it's $12, and you put your cup of water on it, and it turns it into like a spiral, a vortex. would just that structure water, just spinning water into a vortex? Would that structure it? Because that's what it's supposed to do.
It would bring it to life. It's like Victor Schauberger's work, bringing water to life with the spin rate. I would imagine it would give it some life. I mean, just putting intention in the water, period, like Dr. Emoto said, excuse me, does phenomenal things. I mean, just by saying like thank you or I love you to the water and all that, I mean, really does make a huge difference on the outcome of like, you know, the taste and the outcome of how the water's going to treat you and the whole entirety of it.
Changes the frequency. Question just for you, Cameron. Sorry, just quickly. Does Cameron do personal sessions? I'm dealing with a lot of shadow work.
I'm not quite sure what they mean by sessions, as in Reiki, or I've only just started getting into Reiki, so I mean I'm not a practitioner in that regard, no. But I mean I'd be happy to talk with them and just have a chat and see what they need on a personal basis.
Cool. And Cameron's email is in the description below. So yeah, chuck him an email, because I know that you also do like one-offs, like you make tailored, I guess we can call like products for people. So you could make, possibly some orgonite or whatever that would deal with that kind of issue. Maybe, is that right?
Yeah, could do something like that for sure. Just in regards to the little disc you were mentioning off of eBay, I can't speak specifically to what that particular disc is, but that being said, if you take the image, like the actual symbol of the triskelion without forming it from a tensor ring or anything like this, just by drawing that symbol on a piece of paper and then sticking your water over the top of it, that symbol alone is actually imbuing a geometry into that water. And so it's going to have an effect simply by having that geometry underneath of a glass of water. And so the triskelion, for example, the Hideka, is known for its ability to actually structure water, turn it into that high spin rate, and actually elevate the pH. If it's really, really low at 4, it can bring it up to about a 7 or an 8 by just having that symbol next to it and having that intention be imbued into the water.
Wow.
You could carve it into wood too, like the way the rune was done back in the day. If you were to carve it into wood, it's very actually active when you carve it into wood.
Yeah, cool. I was just going to say, because we met someone, because I had one on the back of my phone. I need to put it back on. And we were going up a thing, and this guy goes, "Oh, I've got a tattoo of that." And so would tattoos, do you think that, like in that shape, would that affect anything?
Definitely.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, is that maybe the origins of tattoos? Because I remember they found this, an Iceman back in, I think it was on a mountain in Russia, 20 years ago, and they found all these tattoos on him, but they're all symbols. And when they checked out his skeleton, they found out that they were all on places where he'd had injuries.
That's interesting. Were they different
the rune
types?
Are used to heal. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Were they different types of tattoos? Like, were they different symbols, or were they all the same symbol?
No, as far as I know, they were different.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you a little picture I have. A friend of mine's into rune a lot more, and he has a picture of the rune which coincide with the chakras and everything. So for every place, there's actually a certain rune you can place over the certain area, and it'll help align the chakras. Because they were doing rune actually like way before a lot of writing were around and everything, and it's got like a really, really old origin. I couldn't even begin to tell you where it started. I've heard there's some early versions of rune from Turkey that are very similar to the Elder Futhark, which is a German rune, I think. So it goes back pretty far.
Yeah. Wow, it's making me think about all these buildings. So, for a bit more practical thing, like I was talking to Cameron a week or so ago, and we've actually, where we are, there was no power, so power was brought in, and there's a big power pole next to the abode and a big thing on the wall, which just happens to be next to one of the bedrooms. And so you very kindly, as you always do, have made some stuff and sent it across. So what are the practical, as far as people using this, what are the practicals for getting rid of bad EMF, basically bad juju?
So yeah, this is one of the things that cuts close to home for me, is because of the fact that I ended up as an insomniac. So that's, like I pointed out, that's how I got into it, is just EMF exposure, just out the wazoo. Ended up becoming an insomniac. So things like your thin little pillow plates like these, they're really good. You stick under your pillow, get yourself a better night's sleep, removes all the negative EMR around your head. More personalized little things like your tensor rings. You've got a whole bunch of different sized rings that are different frequencies depending on where you want to put them. But again, they do the same sort of thing. So if you don't want to put a pillow plate or something like that under it, you can put that under instead. All of your rings, they're really good at structuring water. So put them all over your water taps, over your water mains, this sort of stuff, and
Okay.
it'll help with all of that. Things like this one here, engine muck that up. Engine energizer. Basically, it's an orgonite with a couple of different tensors, the fire-based and the sacred qubit-based, which is physical, and some shungite and your different various types of metals. But with the threaded bolt there, you just screw that into the firewall of your vehicle, and that will then help with the rhythmic motion of the motor itself. Other things like your pyramids, just passive around the house so that you can have your modem and not have it just beaming positive charge into you, because it's then flipping out that charge into a negative.
Yeah, right.
Negative in the sense that it's not got a positive charge, electrical charge to it anymore. It's actually imbued with life force.
Yeah, like negative ions. Yeah. Just going back to that engine bit, someone actually sent me a link. Well, I saw it today. Peter Brock, back in the day, had some of that in his engine, and he ended up getting into a big fight with people. But he was finding it was giving him better fuel economy and basically better performance. And anyone who doesn't know who Peter Brock is from overseas, he's like the Australian champion car racer. Is that what you call him? For decades, he was the man. So I mean, he stood behind that too and said, yeah, this stuff works. So is that what you're finding, like better fuel economy as well? And
I don't have any sort of data to back it with, in the sense of stuff written out in a chart, and I've done a study. Here's 100 people with their engines and yada yada, because there's no real way to cross-reference that with so many different types of vehicles at my level. So I can only give anecdotal type information of people that have purchased them and have then given me feedback. They're making the claims that they have seen a 10 to 15% sort of increase in fuel efficiency, but the most sort of common part of it is that they have found that the rattlier their car, kind of older vehicles, lots of creaks and stuff like this, they tend to quieten down a little bit. The rhythmic motion within the motor is harmonized, and so it's actually optimizing the running of the engine, and so it's not as clunky, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Just a quick question on the resin. Now obviously the resin is, it holds it together, but it also creates a piezoelectric effect. So what kind of resins are you using, or what kind of resins should people use if they're going to build stuff?
I use polyester resin. Sorry, Phil. I use polyester resin, but I believe Phil uses epoxy.
Yeah, I use a food-grade epoxy resin. When I first started making it, my younger daughter was about 3 years old, so I didn't want her putting anything in her mouth that was going to make her potentially sick or anything, and I had to look for the food grade, and I sort of stuck it out with that ever since.
Cool. EMF paint. What is EMF paint? Now I don't know if you guys know a lot about this, but there's colors. They say that just different colors, down to literally, I've heard if you get a yellow phone cover, it'll block a lot of the bad EMF. Do you know what EMF paint is, or anything about that?
They use black tourmaline in paint, I believe, and they also use shungite in paint. They also use it to block everything else. It's like basically making a Faraday cage for your home whenever they use that.
Okay, so that's something that you buy, is it, or can you just get paint and put like shungite and stuff in it, or
You could make your own.
potentially do that. Yeah.
The way I've seen people do it internally inside their houses is they take red iron oxide as a powder and then crush their own quartz and crush their quartz down to a very, very fine powder. They then take that mixture and then mix that in with paint and or a resin. I'm not sure if they do it in two parts, like they paint the wall and then apply the resin, but in either case, it's again that alternating sort of material type, and it creates a barrier of orgone energy across that entire surface. It's actually very similar to what they use on the B-2 bomber or B-52 bomber, or whatever the designation for the stealth bomber was. You know, the big black one.
Oh yeah, that one.
Mm.
Yeah, right. A few people have mentioned lead paint, and of course they've taken that away. What's lead? Is because we're told lead's, you know, one of these bad heavy things. Like, do you know much about lead? And
lead was a barrier they use to block off radiation as well. Actually, like even if to this day, if you go get an X-ray, they'll give you a lead vest to wear over like your chest. So you're going to get your, you know, teeth X-rayed or something like that or whatnot. They'll give you a piece of lead basically to cloak because the X-ray can't penetrate that lead. Lead's like a really, I believe that it was taken away because of that. I mean, it is toxic, yes, but I mean, anything can be sort of bad for you if used in the wrong way, in essence. I mean, you can't eat resin, basically, you know. I mean, there's stuff, you know, obviously you can't do, and eating paint, obviously, you know, would be a big one you can't do. And so I do believe that they did take it out because it was helping us, and they don't want us to use anything to meet a coordinate energy. They want us to give us discordant energies and all that. That's why, like, they gave us 440 as a tuning frequency instead of 432 megahertz and all that. And so I believe that has a big property in there.
So basically, that was another protection, you know, system for us, and they didn't want that when they were shooting bad juju at us.
Yeah, they'd rather give us this vinyl paint that, you know, we really can't do much with, and it just burns up twice as bad, if anything. I mean, it's just more fuel to the fire.
The modern household is pretty much too toxic to live in, like for life.
Yeah.
It's actually very, very toxic.
They make intumescent paint too, I believe is what it's called, and it's a fire retardant that they add to the paint. It'd be like adding some sort of a barrier blocker, so whenever the flame hits it, it just turns to a carbon structure on top. Basically, like having like almost a shungite like material, because it's all carbon, and as soon as it keeps burning, it just keeps puffing up, and it won't burn off. It just stays there. And places like around where they have wildfires in California, they use a lot of intumescent paint.
Wow, someone has a lead phone cover. Wow, man,
Wow.
That must be a heavy phone.
Lifting weights with it.
Yeah, man. Could be an idea, right? We just cover stuff in lead and we'll just get buff, man. What do you reckon? All right, so where are we going from here? Well, they use lead in stained glass. Oh, actually, someone mentioned like coils in mattresses. Have you ever thought about that? Like all the old ones, right? Like mattresses are full of coils. Do you think, I mean, obviously we're taught in a spring, but I wonder if that started from something. I don't know. Just a random.
I can't speak specifically to the coils within the mattress themselves, but a lot of people, they'll use an electric blanket, and those things are incredibly bad for you. They're just a giant EMF generator, and you're laying on top of it. So if you have one of these things, please don't, for your own sake. But what you can do, if you do have one, what you can do is you cut the cord off the end of it and extend out the positive negative terminals and run two stakes out to the ground outside, and so you can actually ground that connection point outside, and so it'll have negative ions coming into the household, running through that the coil within the bed sheet, and then back outside, and so it's actually become a grounding mat rather than the opposite of what they've given us.
You'd be able to ground a lot more, so you wouldn't be
nice, because this is all basically So would that work? It'd still be like an electric blanket, but you can actually turn it into a grounding mat as well.
It'd have no power through
No,
it.
it'd just
So
It's
it's not.
insulated.
Yeah,
it's turning it.
you're just turning it into a negative ion generator by having it ground out to the outside. There's no electrical current running through it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Just using the circuitry.
Mm.
Yeah, it'd be keeping it discordant energy.
It's not a bad idea, you know. Maybe you could, you know, be a good yoga mat or something. I'm not sure, right? But this is the thing, like everything, like I mean, just circuitry, right? Just what's if you know if all the tensors are made of copper, pretty much, just like all the wires running through our house, and obviously all these wires are just cut at random lengths and all this kind of stuff. So is that, are they basically emitting the bad energy? Like they're doing the opposite effect if they're not at cut to exact lengths.
Well, typically speaking, the energy is sort of discoordinate when it's passing through a house. What you'd want to do is put like a tensor ring on your electric meter or your smart meter outside. It'll help restructure the energy, so it'll, when it's passing through, it's going to be making that column of energy and light. So when it goes through, it's just going to be positive energy going through, and it's going to sort of keep it structured so it's more positive flowing with a cohesive energy and not disruptive or negative energy, as opposed to any other way you can have it. As well, it's good to put like orgonite on top of it. I don't know if I have any smaller pieces here, but I mean, even if you were to put like this is a little miniature chembuster travel size. Even if you were to put something like this over the top of it, if you had enough room, I mean, that would just do so much for it and really help keep the energy more aligned and better structured.
Yeah, well, I've heard people have been going out and planting this stuff around 5G towers.
Yeah, gifting's a phenomenal thing. It does so much for the environment. It really, really makes a huge difference.
Nice. Welcome back, Mr. BurnEye, Third Eye Mind's Eye without the bow tie. How you doing? Oh, I think you're on mute. Are you? Can't hear you. Doesn't say you're on mute.
Now.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yep.
There we
Yep.
go.
You are.
Now you can hear me now? All right. Sorry about that. Yeah,
It's like we're back in the 1990s.
Epic info you guys have been going over. I've been listening the whole time, and yeah, like ooh, Cameron, I see you got some massive guys in the background there, and that you guys do different coils as well as the pyramids, as well as the orgonite, and then coils within the pyramids. Just have you tried nano coating with the copper or any of the monoatomics or stuff like that? Not
yet. Looking into GANs and nano coating. That's my next project to start looking into as a research avenue.
Right,
nano coating does do a lot more for the energy. It boosts up the energy when you add whenever you really toast that copper ring. Like I've done a couple intentionally like that. I didn't add any caustic soda to it, but I put it in there without cleaning it or anything, and the energy does pop a lot more. It boosts up the energy. It's like adding a crystal form almost over the ring. It's like when you let the patina stay on there and you don't clean it and you just set it in the orgonite, it really structures the energy to like a lot. It amplifies it, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on it, but
actual physics in it, and from my understanding of the nano coating process, that you're building these nanotubed structural lattice layers on the outside of the metals, which then interact with the monoatomics or GANs or ormus, whatever you want to call it. But this plasma state material, which is then plasma energy, higher dimensional energy, and then you're able to then, through this lattice geometry structures, utilize this resonant energy, and that it's essentially organizing and transferring or converting this orgone static
plasma energy into useful life or electrical energy from it. And the key part when creating these nano coating layers is that right as it's starting to solidify and drying out, that you put electrical charge through it that then organizes and directs all of the electrons and into one direction, and then gives you that exponential boost in useful energy properties from it. And that with voltmeter, just having it connected to like a voltmeter as it's drying is enough of a small charge that orients all of the electrons into one direction and then turns that into a macro layered directional force of energy on your coatings and on your structures, metals and stuff.
Sounds like the process of when we heat the rings and it then has all of the crystalline structure of the copper lay one direction in the tensor ring.
That's actually another way of nano coating. That's exactly what you're doing. You're bang on with that. It's one and the same, and it has so there's three ways of nano coating. It's the caustic, or it's the heat flame to it, or it's the electrolysis process on in the water. The three ways.
Yeah, the caustic soda is the one I've heard of. Whenever you just really heat it up and you have that caustic soda on there, and it sort of just leaves a layer that doesn't fall off so easy, because whenever you just super saturate it with heat, it can sort of flake off, and if you're not giving it that electrostatic current, the static will just make it just sort of like flake off into little pieces and it'll float around. So it's really good that whenever you do have, like what he was saying, what Bernie was saying, that static current to keep it annealed to the ring in that same access or process rather.
Nice. Bernie's disappeared. Where have you gone, Bernie?
There we are.
Big shout out to you to Alchemist as well for your support. Got that in finally.
Sorry,
you can go
so
now, Bernie.
Here's the black coppered layer. This is I did this through the caustic process of nano coating, where you can see it's black compared to regular copper. And that it is, though, very delicate, and as it wears down and like is touched, it breaks down. And that's why I've always been thinking about orgonite and these resins and encasing that nano layered shell permanently within the orgonite, within the solid structure, that it will not damage it, and thus keep that exponential nano layer, nano coating on the device, on the coils, and in creating that energy field.
Yeah, with the Kishi, the Kishi works really great. I noticed you got the 2 sets of coils. You already have that other inner coil already wound inside there, Bernie?
Yeah, so the triple Magrav solenoid coils. There's coil within coil. Yeah, it's toroid within toroid. Solenoid within a solenoid within a solenoid. The 3 layers of wires going through in the Magrav Keshi coils.
Yeah, they do phenomenal things. I've had a few friends that make it. That's actually one of the things I've been wanting to get into. I just really haven't had the time to spread out and sort of branch off into that one. But the nano coating really does phenomenal things, though. It's a great thing.
So, and then this one right here, it's not the proportional size, where these are the proportional size of 144 to 81 rings on them. And then, but it is the triple 3 double that's the Magrav, full Magrav unit of the Keshi system is. And I just never created the capacitors and the Bell circuit or the Joule Thief circuit that you connect these two, and then put the monoatomic material in the middle of these coils, and supposedly it hooks up and gives you free energy. And I will be attempting that in the future. And then when the inner coil is, or the smaller coil is placed perpendicular inside the inner coil,
it goes from being the electrical energy generator to what he says is the healing energy units and whatnot. So it's what always resonated with me and struck with me is his connection of plasma to bioenergy, to like the Reiki energies, these Oriental energy healing methods, naturopathy, and all of that. And that it is essentially a lost ancient technology of both alchemy and the East.
Nice. Oh, did
So
everyone freeze?
you're
Or should I
gonna
talk?
are you using that at the minute as a free energy project that you're going to be trying to test out? Did you say soon, or you have tested this? Or
So I haven't had time yet, but I'm in contact with Rick Crammond, Mr. Fix-It Rick on YouTube. He actually runs the Keshe Foundation weekly Zoom conferences and everything. And we're going to do a series where I build the actual unit to spec in front of him and then connect it and test it and hopefully start getting free electricity out of it all.
Are you going to build the Q24? Is that what it's called?
Sorry, the Magrav coils?
Yeah.
What did you ask? Sorry,
the Q24. I believe it's the Q24 is what it's called.
No, I think this was
There's different systems.
Yeah, there's exactly right, and they've updated them, and I haven't looked at the most recent. And there was this Q24 cube or something that came out at one point, and that got heavily censored. It got expunged. It disappeared. And
that one worked phenomenal. I had a friend. I'll connect you with him.
Phenomenal. And honest to God, the inventor of it within the Keshe Foundation, it wasn't Keshe himself, it was some other individual, Pepe, I think his name was. And that the last stories of Pepe is he created a craft and was on the dark side of the moon or something like that. And I literally haven't seen him on the internet in 5 years since creating 224. And I have not seen the blueprints of it, how to make it, but I did save it on a hard drive. And I thank you for reminding me of that, because
I have a friend that made that one. He made a couple of units of that one. I'll try to connect you with him and see if he can't help you out.
That would be appreciated. Wow. And
sounds like Pepe's hanging out with Pink Floyd, man.
Right. The electrical units go connect to capacitors and not themselves like I have in this system. I put a quartz crystal in it, as I heard also at the same time of those Q24 units. And when people were really connecting, making these plasma units, a lot of testimonials saying that they started hearing this like conscious voice or something like source voice, and that by putting like almost an AI consciousness or some universal consciousness within the plasma field, that kind of sketched me out. So I also heard at the time that if you put crystals in between it, that the crystal somehow filters this consciousness out. I don't know. But I've since made all of my coils and units with crystals in them, and I have yet to make a full plasma unit that creates the physical plasma field, where apparently you then interact with some sort of conscious connection.
Wow, man. That's because you've seen all these pictures of these spirit machines from like the 1880s and stuff, yeah, where they have these weird machines.
I gave credence to them in my own thinking, Campbell. Wow. Exactly. Of when I saw those, I was like, are they fake? Because like with what I've seen on, like, you know, like just who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
If we think of death not as a ending, but like just a shift between two different types of states, and now we're harnessing plasma states, why is it infeasible that we would not have this type of technology and actually be able to interact with those realms? But we're told that it's not possible. It's not, it's all magic. It's not something that is real, and so don't even think about it.
Great point, Cameron. And why now have we gone to all this digital instead of analog? And are all of these digital frequencies, radio frequencies, X-ray, like all these harmful different electro energies being broadcast everywhere at us? Is that to prevent and prohibit our natural interaction with this higher energy field and dimensions of the spiritual realm, Gaia, and so forth. And that is like electricity being distorted and abused when maybe we, since we're all energy, do we transfer into this some sort of bioelectricity energy back and forth between higher conscious realms? And are we in fact feeding upon this life force by using and distorting natural DC current into this alternating AC electricity that we're burning off everywhere? Is that why there's so much resistance to it, maybe?
Resistance.
Could that be the actual matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big cloak. They cover us with all these VLF, very low frequencies, the UHF, and all these other AM, FM frequencies and all that. Yeah, that's how we avoided an ice age, ended up going through a dry cycle and ended up with a dust bowl back in the 20s and 30s because we altered the frequency whenever we introduced VLF, which is a AM very low frequency. That's also what started the Spanish flu, is also what I've been told.
Wow.
It was a frequency thing whenever they were exposed to it.
Right? Dis-ease.
When I was talking with Dr.
The 440
Sam.
from 432. Sorry, Campbell, to interrupt, but dis-ease, you're no longer in homeostasis. They switched the frequency over from 432 to 440. Is that what started causing all these ailments, cancers, and diseases and viruses?
Dis-ease, right? Yeah. Right.
They say a lot of it was to do with mind control. 440 makes you more subservient and more... it's like eating fluoride, basically. You're just going to make yourself more prone to this, whatever you're being told to do. And through that 440, not only do they make it discordant energy, but they control people through anger and just different things that they're embedding into the frequency like that. And that's how they keep people sort of cloaked with this, and they keep them resonating so much lower whenever there's so much more to growth. And
absolutely. Vibrating on that lower frequency of act react, like
fight or flight, yeah, man.
Fight or flight, exactly, right? And that instead of love, light, and like a higher dimensional thought, you start thinking of others, you start thinking of the future, you're literally taking your consciousness throughout time. Or are you degrading down to this anger or fear, fight or flight, where you no longer think of others, you're only on your own survival, you're going to harm others to try to survive yourself, and no longer in a communal higher timeline and community.
The reptilian brain, that's when you're resonating a lot lower when you're using the reptilian brain. That's like basically would be the 2D of what we would be, brought down to if we're resonating at that level and everything. Having to stick with the fight and flight and all that is where that reptilian brain comes into play and everything. And
they polarize us and put everything into positive, negative, just like the electrical circuit, right? And so we're switching between, obviously with positive and negative. If something's positive or good, then the opposite is negative or bad, right? And that's the fight or flight. That's all this judgment stuff. But then, universal energy, free energy seems to be like the one, right? It's like the pyramid. And that the polarity is at the bottom, and that the apex is the combined energy. It's like the middle path. But I was going to say about the pyramids. When I was talking to Dr. Sam, I'm pretty sure it's 24 hertz. I hope that's right. This beam coming out the top, it was pointed at the sun, and they found that it was tracking the sun. It was moving around, tracking the sun as it moved. And this frequency was a communication frequency that went both ways, sent and received. So he was theorizing that, and we've all heard he's a son of portal and all this stuff. Was that a way of communicating with other realms, right? Because obviously now all that's been shut down, right? And we've been put into this closed circuit of electricity, electricity, positive and negative.
Yeah, that was the sun pyramid, I believe, that he was making reference to. That one has a phenomenal energy for it. I do observe the Bosnian pyramids. They're awesome. They're really, really a phenomenal thing. I don't think people have studied them enough. There's people like Tony Panzer and a few others from Australia, like Rod Bradshaw and whatnot, and They actually, I believe Rod Bradshaw works with SMD and Sun Moon Dragon Pyramid and all that, and there's a few others out there that are really, really great. And yeah, I mean, I've been researching so much on what I discovered that I don't really go astray too much right now. I'm just sort of fixated on what I've discovered to sort of bring to light for everyone else to use and utilize as healing tools in every which way you can think about it.
So easy to get lost in everything because there's a full universe
Oh my
over
goodness.
there, right? That you have to pick a depth subject and just focus on it, or you'll have a million projects and none of them finish.
Ain't that the truth, brother?
There's a comment saying tinfoil hats work, and yeah, you're building a Faraday cage over yourself, but I've also heard inversely, some people will actually amplify like a satellite dish the negative frequencies if they're being bombarded. So for some it blocks it out, but for others it'll actually increase it even more. So it can go both ways.
It would probably depend on frequency, because I think, Cameron, you've got a copper tin hat.
I was going to say, it might depend on what they actually use, because we don't actually have tin foil anymore. It's aluminium, isn't it?
Yeah,
they use aluminum. Yeah, they got rid of that about 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, just put a ring over your head and it'll really take care of all that energy. I mean, there you go, Cameron.
This is my fruit
and
basket.
Of course, what does that look like but a crown? Fascinating.
I'm actually going to be using one of these here. Which one is this one, I think? I'm going to be taking a full-sized ring, like the full-size on the base here, so that it fits over the top of the head, but then join it to one like this one here. And so it'll actually be a crown that's actually sitting over the top of their head like that for meditation, and be able to strap a crystal ball or something like that.
Right, and because the crystal's the resonator, and that's actual tech, and that's why the powers that be spent so much money, monetary value, and all their gold and their gems and rubies on top of their heads in these ridiculous crowns. It's in Tictoc. It's right on your crown.
All the stones had different energies and
exactly.
Yeah,
and so
I can't remember. Ruby has like a higher level frequency energy, if I'm not mistaken, and even Emerald's really good for that. And those were two that were utilized very widely. I mean, even aside from diamonds themselves, they use a lot of rubies and emeralds and tourmalines, I believe, too, and all that. And it's really, really crazy, like the kinds of stones they would use. And whenever you do the research and what kind of energy they carry, it's like takes it to that other spectrum, I guess you could say.
I mean, and that's all jewelry, right? Like, obviously, the bangles are basically would have started as tensor rings, and necklaces, right? Like, yeah, there we go. Necklaces hang down over your heart chakra, right?
Oh, show again, please, Cameron. And that's just tapping into the natural bio.
It's the Eye of Ra. Nice. Oh. We've lost Cameron.
Wider gauge ones I was making. This one hasn't been cleaned yet, so it's still got that little coating on it.
Right, and you've got several toroidal, solenoidal fields within those designs. So that's actual electromagnetic physics. Like there's real engineering behind what you're making. Like it's not just this woo-woo crystal new age jewelry art. It's like this is actual electrical engineering behind these different devices and technologies.
Does the width of the copper have an effect, or is it just the thicker it is, the bigger the field, or?
It does.
The thicker it is, the stronger. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes and no. Like in the fundamental basics, yes, but then once you get into like the nano coding and into specific like resonant frequencies and masses of different fields you want to put out to affect different potential diseases, viruses, cancers, stuff like that, or biological cells that then you'll, depending on what frequency you want coming out of the field coming out, you will need to use different smaller or thicker wires or groups of wires and such, as well as alloys, right? Different mixtures where it's not just copper. That if you put some bismuth, aluminum, silver, gold, stuff like that in, and this is a science obviously that's just getting started all over again, right? The tests need to be done on all of this, but that it's essentially all relevant that will affect the precision and level of success of these technologies.
Yeah, definitely all the metals have different energies. I mean, I totally agree with you. Like even back in the day with milk, back in the early days, they would put a silver dollar in the milk so it wouldn't spoil because the antimicrobial properties of the silver in itself would just do so much. So yeah, like you could make a triskelion out of silver, gold, bronze, whatever you want. I mean, the different metals carry different energies. I'll see if I can't find a paper later on and I'll try to share it next time. But I've got a paper on the different properties of energy that the different alloys contain and everything. And bismuth is on the list. That's a really good one. It's very powerful. That one's got a very good frequency. And a few others I want to be trying out pretty soon. I want to see if I can't potentially make or something, or have someone help me make that has a forge or something. Is Nordic Gold and Shibuchi, I believe is the name. It's whenever you get a copper and silver and you mix it, and it makes this real pretty rose-colored, basically like a copper alloy type of material, and it's got a different energy altogether. And I've been really excited and looking forward to trying something like that because there's so much more out there that we haven't had a chance to even work with that just been suppressed material basically. And
yeah, man. Yeah, well, that's what we're rediscovering, like all this old tech. You just had a question, and you mentioned before that you put magnets in your orgonite. What's the effect of like wearing magnets? I hope it's good because I've got lots of them on. And thank you very much, Mr. Lambert, for your support.
Yeah, wearing magnets is really good because when you wear them over your arteries, it actually flattens out the red blood cells, so they have more of a surface area, so it can grab more oxygen, and you have a higher oxygen concentration in your bloodstream, giving you more energy. And it also helps because, well, it depends where you wear it, but if you wear it on your wrist, I mean, like it's gonna go with major arteries, so it continuously charges that blood that's passing through your body and everything, and it helps in so many ways.
I'm trying to be sneaky.
Sorry about ducking out there before. I accidentally knocked the camera off. I was trying to show the...
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Look at that. Epic proportions.
This is a new design that I've worked on just recently in regards to the Eye of Horus. And if you understand that the half cut of the two hemispheres of the brain is actually this symbol, you'll recognize that it's designed to be able to help with the union of the two hemispheres. And so by wearing that, you've not only got the various tensor rings that are there, but then you've also got the symbolism that is within the ring itself.
Yeah, the Wajette was very good to keep people safe on a rite of passage. They would paint it on the side of a ship just to keep bad and negative energy
and
away.
So does that shape itself?
The different geometries. There's you're casting spells. You're literally putting these energetic portals through these symbols, through the what's the correct word for it? But like the witches, the Wiccans, and the Alchemist, the sigils. The sigils through these sigils and signs within the circles. That's what sacred geometry is. It's these energetic grid patterns of how energy moves through the different dimensions of space-time, and that's what the two-dimensional sacred geometrical symbols are specific mathematical equations of the inner workings of energy of this universe.
Just on the symbols as well, like when you look at corporate symbols, in particular, the really big ones, when I tell you about a big yellow M on a red background, I don't have to name the corporation and everybody's going to know exactly who I'm talking about. They're going to think about hamburgers, they're going to think about French fries, they're going to think about a drive-through. All of that is energy that is then stored in our brains that is associated with that symbol. I don't have to say the name of the corporation, but everybody knows that I'm talking about McDonald's. And that symbol has such a reverence around the world in people's minds that they that in of itself is a form of spellcasting on the minds of the people that have been subjected to it. And so advertising and stuff like that, people think of this as somewhat benign and, oh, I won't be tricked by that. It's like, hang on a minute, you're actually having a spell cast over the top of you and you may not even have a clue that is happening. In fact, most people don't.
Programming through television.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yes, it's the idiot box, by the way, not a smart TV.
I'm working on this one right here.
If you have it connected to, YouTube and Rumble, and that's what makes it so great.
Alternating two star coils. I did a double stack, and this is just 3 winds. I need to get about a mile of copper because I want to make a bigger one. The energy is so nice with this one. It's basically a 24-point rodent coil, but when you do one, you alternate the other one, and then you alternate back and forth until you finish the whole thing. Yeah.
What?
So it's basically a double stacked coil right here.
Okay, because now we're getting into now that's very well. It is that's what they're using to create free and low cost energy is these designs. So it's a direct crossover, right? Yeah, it really is because all this stuff was really suppressed. It's all done in the geometry. It was before our very eyes this whole time, and it was just a matter of time before. I'm sorry, go ahead.
How many points did you have on that your star coil?
The green frame one, it's a 24-point. It's two 12-point coils that are just basically, instead of it arranged like that, I offset it so it can just have a larger field of energy to propagate from.
Yeah, I still have to do more tests on the
beautiful one right there.
Yeah, the Rife coil, Rife
Whoa.
Matthew Rife coils, and I've had varying results so far. And the first time I turned them on, I got some shooting pains through me when I played a couple of the tracks through their apps. So it's you got to be cautious with this stuff because it can be just as damaging as it can healing. And that's why I myself have been very cautious in what I've run in my tests, how much energy I've put through coils and the different frequencies in it. And why I need to do more tests when I have the energy within me to handle the energy coming out of those to see if they actually know what they're doing or not. Because,
if you have a frequency generator, you can tune it to 174 and that removes pain. Or if you don't, if you have an Android phone, later on I can shoot you the app I use on my Android. But there's a frequency generator that you can download and you can run multiple frequencies.
Shoot me the app because the one that Matthew Ripe uses, just like Simon in the live chat said, I don't trust.
Yeah, wow. So that thing, that coil, that's getting very close to Rife technology, isn't it?
Yeah. Whenever you're using the Starship coils,
can you guys hear me?
The running coils.
Sorry, everyone in chat. We've got a few technical issues.
It's just farming.
Yeah, when you're using the star coils, they really make a huge difference. They generate so much energy, and they would be so good if you're using them in the right way when you're spinning them to produce free electricity because they do generate a electromagnetic field.
Oh, Campbell, we're losing Campbell on the farm.
So, Bernie, the one that you put out, that you said that came from Matt Rife himself, was it? He built that one?
This is one of the Matthew Rife coils. He sent me a unit of 2 of them, but the 14 spoke, it's like that's not an ultimate number you want, but I would have gone with 12 or 24 or something like that. And also that the type of wire, and there's a few issues with it, and I'm still yet to join the technicians. We're going to do a full episode on breaking it down and testing and all of that, being fair with it. But I wouldn't recommend for $5,700 that supposedly he's charging for one of these units. Currently, little bit too much for something that first time I turned it on caused me a bunch of pain, and that the app that he connects to isn't even his own building or proprietorship. It's someone else's that he doesn't have control of. So
that Z app, I've used it before. I'll send you a link to the one I use. I have an alternate one I use as well. I've used that one still, and it actually does help. You have to be very specific, like you said. It's grain specific with the frequency. I haven't made a 14-point coil, but I don't know if that's got something to do as well with the way the energy is being propagated out of it. I mean, I couldn't honestly tell you that one. I do the 12-point coils, and later on I was going to try to play around with these over here. I got these other type of PoE coils, and this one's done in a resin print right here.
Right? Yeah, I love that geometry so much more.
Yeah, the donut makes a different energy in itself. It really centers the focal point, like right laser down the middle. Like this one's super accurate with its energy, the way it pulses out, as opposed to this one. Whenever you're pulsing, it's just sort of like doing a pulse, but it's coming from all the whole points and everything. It's just drawing out the energy in a forward motion because it's flat. It's not made in a 3-dimensional circuit in that sense. Because when you're doing it on this one, you're following a number pattern. And it's a 369 everywhere, all over this. It's 369, and then you have other random numbers that generate like 1, 3, 4, 7, 9, or 8, 12, and all these other numbers. But really, what you're looking at is a 369, 369. It's like making this constant pattern, sort of like the monsoon coil makes as well.
Yes, and I'm quiet because there's a big rooster, as everyone's noticed, right next to me. I'm just hoping he doesn't attack me. He attacked me the last time I recorded, so let's hope.
Phil, can you just explain what the difference is between that the rodent coil, I believe that's what you called it, what you just had in your hand, versus something like the Mobius?
The monsoon coil, that one was made by Stephen Geddes,
right, Phil? And then this is the Mobius.
Yes. Yeah, the Peace on Earth coil, and then that would be the monsoon coil. Steve Geddes out of Australia made the monsoon coil. He was making originally his own PoE coil, and he designed his own basically. And what he did was he got a tensor ring, and he used that basically as a core right here. And there's a certain wrapping pattern that you do, and when you follow that wrapping pattern, it makes the whole coil come out abundantly. I have a piece right here actually too.
And I'm going to have both of you boys on for one of my next Year of the Coil episode series that we do on my channel. Right? And look at that. Yes, connecting Oregonite with the coils. And that has been a dream of what I've wanted to start experimenting with and building for a long time. So we are going to...
Yeah, the energy is so much more phenomenal, and it amplifies things in a beautiful way. You won't want to go back to regular Orgonite. I'll tell you that right now.
Right, and that's what the other PoE coil thing you had up there. Was that the mold, or was that a built one? And iHeart Pyramid sells those where they've got geopolymer crystal in with an Orgonite crystal in with the PoE coils themselves, so it's amplifying.
A good friend of mine printed this one out and sent it to me as a gift. There's what is it, opensource.com, I believe. It's all open source. I mean, you can get this information for free and just download it. You got to choose your parameters correctly though, because when you're making these, or rather when you're printing them, I had a friend print one out for me, and this was a test print in the very beginning, and it wasn't done right. So you can see how it doesn't really follow the pattern quite efficiently as the way this one does. There's more latticing and like more structure. There we go. You can see a little better right there. So yeah, basically the monsoon coil follows the same basic structural pattern, and it just makes a different level of amplitude of energy because of the wire, once again, that's wrapping around it and everything. It's just, when you're putting those frequencies in it, it just really zaps out that energy and works in a beautiful way. And like I said,
Right. Those geometries, they just have such natural beauty into them, and that's like, sacred geometry is held sacred for so many different reasons, but beauty is just the outside layer of that shell, and at the very core is the energy that it is the structure and geometry of, in so many of them. It's amazing, these symbols that have been perverted for so long and distorted, when in fact there's thousands of meanings for each of them and contained within them.
Yeah, man. Symbol. It's interesting, right? They've changed all the symbols, like you said before, Phil, to advertising. So we're literally being programmed to go consume, right, rather than being programmed to tune in. I guess be in tune and be healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to keep everyone in a discoordinate area to keep them fogged up at the brain and all, and they want to be able to say, "Oh, you do this, you do that," and through programming on the television and all this, like, you know, it's just made like that, and we were so blinded to follow for so long. But now that we've all come to a mass awakening, you know, like, there's a lot of us to deal with now.
Yeah, like
things are going to be the same.
Do we need to know like what these symbols are, or are they? Do you think they're part of the blueprint? Because most of them are based on either the body or, you know, nature, basically, aren't they? We're all obviously a golden M, isn't like so. Yeah, do you think that we need to be consciously aware of what these symbols are, or do you think it's like a built-in mechanism?
A bit of both.
Yeah, we need to be consciously aware of a lot of things around us, because sometimes they want to program us with false indoctrinations and everything. And if we're not aware of what we're being shown and everything, we'll never be able to resonate higher or outside of that little low abundant frequency range. And we'll be kept subservient in that way, I guess, speaking, and we won't be able to grow, and we can't.
And on that point as well, they have taken all of the symbols that have, you know, got so many different meanings that if we actually understood them, would give us much greater insight into how the realm works. You know, take, for example, the swastika. That particular sign is actually representative of the 4 quadrants of the zodiac and how it interrelates on the wheel. But now, whenever you bring that up, everybody just looks at you and goes, "Oh, you're a Nazi sympathizer, are you?" And I was like, no, hang on, I didn't say anything about Nazis. I wanted to talk about this symbol. I was like, yeah, but that's a Nazi symbol. Like, you can't even have that conversation with people.
Didn't the Nazis actually flip it the other way and tilt it? I think the original swastika was supposed to be facing the other direction and facing a flat face, but they tilted it and like flopped it the other way or something like that. I don't know. I've heard people talk about it. I don't know too much exactly about it, but
it's basically just the symbol. It's basically representative of the cross between the quadrants. So when you take the zodiac, there's the 12 zodiac, right? The 12 houses within the zodiac on a wheel. But then you take the cross sections of it, and you've got your solstices and equinoxes as it rotates around the circle, around
the precessionary calendar.
Yeah. Right, and so what that symbol was actually representative is the cross points of where that meets on the astrology chart, or on the astrology circle of the 12 houses. But the point is that they've taken that symbol, somewhat inverted it, like they do with everything, and then re-given us a new narrative as to what that symbol means. And they do that with everything. And so we've basically got to go back now and start researching again, figure out what these symbols actually mean in order to be able to then apply them in a correct manner in order to manifest what we want rather than what they want.
Exactly,
Yep.
right? And hiding it in plain sight and this false idol worship and distorting the sacred into the perverted. Like Isis, this sacred goddess of, eternal beauty within the soul and everything she represented for so long in creation and that, and then turned into a terrorist organization, literally the worst of humanity, destroying itself in a matter of a year. It's just ridiculous what they do.
Yeah, the Freemasons butchered a lot of sacred geometry, and they used it in their own ways to accelerate themselves in those manners of speaking. And there's a lot of stuff that, a lot of people have used in different ways to sort of benefit themselves. And if we just had everything back to the way it should be, there would be so much more we could see and be able to benefit from, I guess you could say, in those terms of speaking.
Oh, hello.
Sorry,
Did we
I'm
lose
muting
everybody?
myself out when I'm not talking to not interrupt. And Campbell is out on the young Mick Campbell's on a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on this farm, he's going to electroculture, E-I-E-I, energy to the sky.
Yeah. I mean, so I should be using orgonite as well. You were saying before that I think that you've used orgonite, or someone was using orgonite in gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If you actually check out what they did on the Etheric Warriors, they have a page and they show a lot of examples of how, like, you have one little piece of fruit, and then whenever you grow with orgonite, like, it turns to this bigger, really turns to this bigger piece, but it grows, it enhances the plant growth and the vitality and everything, and just everything. I mean, the food tastes better when it's grown like that. Water tastes better when it's charged with it. I mean, it sort of makes everything that much better.
And what would you do?
Just
Put it at the base of the tree?
If it's a tree, I'll leave it at the base. If it's a garden area, I sort of put orgonite pucks or pine cones are on the corners of my perimeter of the garden, and I'll have like one harmonizer in the middle. That way, like, everything's got a little coverage area with it.
I have an instance where I have somebody that has taken one of the green pyramids, and they chose green specifically because they were going to put it in their garden. Fairly small pyramid, and it's about the size of one of the smaller ones that you see there, roughly about a 10 centimeter base on it, and put that on top of the holding tank that was in his garden where he holds the stock of the water that he's going to use to water the garden. He made the mistake of planting a pumpkin in the hothouse, and it completely took over the entire hothouse.
Oh yeah.
Right, I can't wait to
all
start
that.
more pictures of those ridiculous, like, truck-sized pumpkins and melons, beets and stuff that you see, and it's going to be combining the monoatomic colloidal waters with electroculture and this orgone energies and putting it all to use and practical use and bringing back abundance for us all. And it starts with each of us and doing it in our own yards and lives. And Campbell, we're going to have you out there with a copper hoe and shovel and some copper wire wrapping around those trees behind you, maybe.
Hey, question. In regards to the electroculture that Matt was talking about from Elevate Cultivate, or what? I mess up his name.
Right. Yep.
You got it right.
He didn't make mention of any particular measurements or lengths like this. It was I'm not sure if he.
Not that I know of. He was just talking about copper. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, if we got proper lengths for proper frequencies.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
Oh, continue first, Cameron.
Sorry, Bernie. The lengths that I'm thinking. So, like, in regards to creating an antenna, if we took a post, right, a bit of wood, and instead of just wrapping a wire around it and putting it up, what if we were to take some of the straight line tensors and actually say take like 8 of them, put that around the outside of the post, and then wrap that in copper, and then bring that down. And that way it's got specific measurements as part of the antenna, as like the actual array part of it, which is then drawn down into that piece of copper wrapped around the post and then grounded into the ground. And so if we were to take something like the Viking qubit, which is water-based energy, that may even have a better, even more beneficial effect. Or if it's an area that's like too wet, well, then maybe we use a fire-based qubit like the Ramu qubit or something instead.
Wow. So, I mean, qubits,
Yeah.
I mean, they've clearly messed up our measurement system too, right? Because we're on metric here and we have imperial, which is probably closer. So,
They've distorted it more, right? Of course.
yeah.
Just like
So what is a qubit is just a defined length, right? But you're saying that they were all found and used for specific frequencies or different results, right?
The different qubits, if you think of them as a form of measurement, much like taking a length of wood in order to create a xylophone G or a C or an A, right? So each of the different lengths of wood have their different harmonics, different tones, and the same applies with the different qubit lengths. They all exhibit different frequencies. So the Viking qubit is a water-based frequency that resonates at 443 megahertz, I believe. But yeah, being water-based feminine energy, if you're in an area that has not a lot of water and it's very dry, it's a droughted area, perhaps by integrating that particular frequency, because like the straight line tensors, they're just the bits of copper that are brazed on either end. They work very similar to the Lakhovsky coil in that it's creating that vortex of energy around the outside of that coil, going back and forth and alternating there. So if we took like 8 of those and put them on top of the outside of the bit of wood, the post, wrapped that coil in copper and then brought that down, it would probably have more of an effect in drawing that etheric energy into it, because it's actually acting as the array rather than just a single bit of copper into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that essentially that what Matt was first saying is because you had asked Campbell when we got that response by Matt, he was saying just for the basic person to start trying it at home was to just wrap the copper wire to the stick, ground it in, and create the antenna up, and that's going to harvest just small amounts and start creating these fields. But obviously there's a way larger science to it, that geometries matter, that materials matter, that you can include more electrical or electromagnetic technologies into it, like refining the energy, the signal you're putting down in, the frequency, and all of that, with what the antenna that you create, or the technology structures that you create to utilize electroculture. And some of them I'd seen in the book that, shout out Sherry Ives in the chat, sent me this electroculture book, that there's some tests back in the 20s and 30s where they were building whole nets of antenna arrays over the crops themselves, and that they were also putting in direct current and alternating current of different frequencies, and that, of course, it's an entire science of electroculture that needs to be studied and then applied accordingly, and that it's just the very basics to start with a solenoid wrapped coil or copper coil around wood, creating an antenna.
I mean, that is literally a crown.
This is one of Slim Sperling's harmonizers, a very small one. This is what you would consider a personal harmonizer that you could wear around your neck on a chain or something like that. But the larger full-sized versions of these, so this is a quarter measure of the sacred qubit. The full-sized rings, would end up making a harmonizer about the size of a basketball, or thereabouts. But when you take one of those ones, that's the size. Again, if you're thinking of it more like a sun, right, it's basically creating a sun-like energy in a toroid form because of the configuration of the rings in such a manner. And so that, what I was saying earlier, it's basically infusing that light spectrum back into the plants in much the same way as what Matt was talking about from Electro Cultivate Elevate.
Cool.
Absolutely.
You know how we see all these old, gardens in, what do they call them? Palaces and things.
Yeah, the but
They make-
Devonian or botanical gardens, the botanical.
Yeah. And
But
they've always built
the thing
around
is,
geometry, but it's not necessarily shapes. It's more like curves and things. Do you think what kind of effect do you think that would have?
100%, Campbell. Sorry, I have to interject on this because I've been thinking about that specifically a lot lately, and that I think it's code144.com or coralcastledecoded.com, but the guy goes into the geometry of magnetic fields as well as of Adlead Scallan's book of magnetic flow and current, and that a lot of it is actually these rounded spherical shapes and designs, and that you see all these sacred geometry gardens within them, and that is essentially part of this energetic farming and what I guess we would call electroculture or Oregon culture, the energy growing, energy farming.
Earth energy.
They're magnetrons.
Agriculture, energy agriculture, I guess.
They're magnetrons.
Yeah, well, like even if you look at like the Stonehenge and all these other places all around the world, they're actually giant magnetrons. The churches and everything, the windows, you can actually superimpose those along with sacred geometry, and it all forms the same pattern. It's all for the same thing. It's moving energy, like y'all said earlier.
And you'll find that a lot of these sacred sites and whatnot are actually falling on top of energetic points as well that are based on the cymatics. So, like, I believe it was Michael Tellinger, a lot of his work on these stone circles and stuff like that, when you look at the energy that is coming out of that particular point where they've been built, it's actually in alignment with the cymatic visual that is created from that energy. So they're basically working in tune with what is already there, and then putting down their foundations based on what the actual layout of the planet's energetics are at that point in the planet.
Yeah.
It's along the 33rd parallel.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's a lady who actually goes into cathedrals and she records the silence, and then she'll play that silence back and record again, and she does that 7 times, and she ends up with a frequency. And of course, we know all these. Is it Rosslyn Chapel? I think it is in the UK. It literally has cubes in the ceiling with cymatic shapes on it, and it makes a song. So that's what you're sort of talking about. Is each energy point or vortex would give off a certain frequency, which equals a certain shape, cymatic shape, and so they're then tuning the structures into that frequency.
I forget specifically who said it, but I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but they basically was quoted as saying that architecture is music frozen in time, and that I can't sum it up any better than that. It's quite literally like all the geometry, all the architecture. It's quite literally music that has been slowed down to the point where it's now manifest physical, in a particular shape. Yeah.
So can you grow
in regards to that, they can sort of play the way a pot was made in Egyptian times, and they can pick up the sounds that were around that pot being made, the clay vessel that is. There's a lot they can do with technology, and it's like basically the vibrations that are over it. That it's like basically like a record, so they're stored in time, like a time vault.
It's like electroarchaeology, man. I'm into that.
Heck yeah. I was thinking of like there's parts, arcs.
Parts.
Arcs.
Out of place architecture. Parts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Parts, yeah. Yeah. Wow. So just as another note, like I'm just looking at this garden next to me, and of course all the raised garden beds are rectangles. So I guess from building gardens, we should be like focusing more on spirals and circles and arcs and things like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
When you look at the 90-degree angle that forms the square, it's quite literally a manifestation of a box. Right, it's a 2D representation of a box. It's a way that they manage to keep us in a particular mindset, And
Yeah,
so by
certain
building
symbol.
everything into squares, they've locked us into a paradigm, a way of thinking, just through the energetics of having us live in square boxes.
Yeah. You know, we all know that, you know, those people who like their free masonry, the buildings, right? They have that little symbol with a couple of right angles in it. And then what do they introduce but brutalism, which is right angle architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah, animals. Did you see the animals walking in circles?
Yeah, they
was
say
it?
that's due to the magnetic frequencies that are happening and everything. It's making them. They only do that in very rare instances, and I want to say actually the CMEs, the coronal mass ejections that happen from the sun, can also cause that to happen as well.
Wow. So
That makes sense. We've had a lot of solar storms over the last month or so.
Yeah, and the 19th and the 20th, we're going to have some really big ejections coming from the sun, and supposed to be some upgrades happening. If I don't know if you're into all
is
that,
that
but I
next
mean,
month or is that it's the 19th here
no,
today? Is it?
yeah. Well, okay, you're in. Yeah, all right, you're in Australia, so you're a little ahead of me. You're about 16, 17 hours ahead. So yeah, the vibrations are going to be coming in a lot more intense. Some people feel body aches and like flu-like symptoms whenever they are engaged with the whole upgrade and all that type of thing going on. You just got to ground out more. If you have tensors, wear them, charge your water with them, and drink a lot of charged water. It'll help align the body a lot more so you can be in your right place.
Cool. And just quickly, we have had obviously lots of questions, but again, links below to get in contact with, you know, Cameron and Phil. They make and sell products. So yeah, if you're looking at buying anything or getting more information, definitely get in contact with them. Because this is the stuff that we talk about, right? Everyone's like, the new Earth, when's the new Earth coming? When's it? Well, it's gonna, you know, we're gonna be there when we create it, you know. And if there's something else coming that helps us along the way, then awesome. But this is practical stuff we can all do, right? And this is for food, for water, for getting rid of EMFs, for improving, you know, health, for gardening, better project, like so many things, right? And it's literally, you can make this with, you know, it's just stuff you can get pretty cheaply. Yeah. Just got to put in the time and make sure you get it right and you know what you're doing. And this is the tech we need to start working with, right? That's why I call this Earth energy tech, right? Need to get back into the Earth energy.
Right, the galactic.
Look at this bad boy right here.
Oh, wow. Here we go, Mr. Big Boy.
Boom.
Ooh, this is a big one.
Wow.
So what's that for? Teleportation?
Right.
This one's actually going to be a pyramid topper for an actual meditation pyramid. It's a bit heavy, but yeah, this will be the lotus that goes at the bottom. You'll be feeling the energy come from there, and it's got a rodent coil sitting at the top too, so it'll propel energy, and you can tachyonize things, heal, or just do some nice clearing of the sky and everything.
Wow, right? That is so cool.
Yeah, this is a heavier one. I'm gonna put it down before.
Definitely, we're gonna have you guys on both the Year of the Science or Year of the Coil series that I do, as well as the Real Science, and get into these making activities together, these projects. As I've been wanting to make my own for years. I've bought many, as you can see here with BurnEye. But have yet to make my own, and I want to specifically get into adding the monoatomic materials, as well as the nano coating of these different toroidal coils, Keshe coils, these energies in there, the rodent coils like you guys are doing, putting it in, and combining the different energy technologies, these plasma technologies, these bioelectric field technologies together. And what the heck else? I had another big point I wanted to say, but it's forgot it already.
I'm just going to say, like, there's so many comments saying, you know, how good these things, you know, people see them as beautiful, right? And I mean, that's sort of telling us that, to me, that's telling us it's the right thing. You know, it's the right energy, it's the right frequency. This is the way we need to go, right?
Resonating with you, right?
Naturally resonating. Very good.
geometry and beauty that you see out of it, and exactly that. And that do you, Phil and Cameron, do you ever like sleep with those like under your beds, or how do you use them?
That's actually how I got into the space, is because I became an insomniac when they put a 4G tower up the road from me. So yeah, I started out with a couple of pyramids, quite a bit smaller than one that I just showed, just one on either side of my bed, and yeah, managed to fix my sleep cycle in a couple of weeks. So I now have a pillow plate and a bunch of other stuff surrounding my bed. So yeah, and not only that, like, you know, you've got the bracelets and stuff. Yeah, I'm always wearing a pendant and stuff like that. So like, I don't have any issues with EMF anymore unless I'm like standing like next to a tower kind of thing.
Right, definitely. That's awesome. So yes, also this new electroculture / agricultural real science series that we're doing, if you guys would like to partake in that. And what I'd recommend for your guys' actions in it would be growing seeds, the same seeds, like, and same dirt sort of thing, where you get like three pots with same soil, same seeds for your controls, and then one of which you have with your organites growing placed around it, and then one with the organite around it, and you use like your organite treated water into it, and then a third that just is regular water that you'd normally use with it. And then thus you're having 3 different tests and controls of the regular growth, and then exposed to the organite energy field, and then also with the extra charged organite water in it, sort of thing.
Nice. I might do that as well.
I'd be happy to help out with that one.
Yeah, so we're going to be launching this series in the next couple of weeks, and then I myself am going to be doing with the what I call colloidal water, is the water from the top of the monoatomics. So then it dissolves the monoatomic materials in, and then be watering plants with the monoatomic water, and then obviously with my regular tap water as the control. And then I'm going to do another with the blue oxidized diatomic colloidal water to see if it poisons the plants. And then if I get myself together enough, also try to do some microwaved water on another one. But I don't know. Do I do it?
Yeah, no, do that one. Microwave
I might wait till next year, though, in case, you know, that's a whole nother bag of worms that I might open, that maybe we'll leave that for afterwards in case there's some sort of pushback by industry or something, if it actually proves something. But the fact of first doing scientific tests on the colloidal waters, the diatomic waters, and all of that, and that there's a couple streams where I showed the pictures of the 6-foot lettuce plant I grew last year, where I had watered it with the same colloidal water, as well as put a little bit of monoatomic gold by the seed when I first planted it, and literally got 10 different salads off of the one plant, and it just kept growing. And some people were like, "Oh, lettuce shoots up in its seeds," and it's like in the pictures in the video that I show, you can clearly see that it's not flowering yet, it's not in seed pod, and that the leaves have actually been picked off, and it grew full bushed leaves that we ate in salads, not that spiky, harsh, almost
bitter
like lettuce that leaves it forms once it starts flowering.
Well, as soon as they go to seed or flower, it goes bitter and you can't eat it anyway. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and that never happened. It was delicious romaine the whole time.
Wow, man. Awesome. All right, well, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. So have you guys got anything you want to add there, Cameron or Phil?
I think we'll leave it there. Yeah, no, that's good.
You're good, Phil?
If there's anything I can ever do to help you guys out, you know, just let me know. As far as everything else, I've been researching, and I've actually rediscovered a couple new measurements. One of them is a Venusian cubit. It's based on Venus and a lot of stuff I've been researching on the whole historical aspect point of view of it and all that. I ended up coming up with a tensor ring. I found some numbers that just kept popping up and everything, and I couldn't avoid it. So yeah, I went ahead and I took the numbers down and I made a ring out of it. This is actually not the ring, but it's a larger ring about this size. And the energy is really phenomenal. It's such a soft feminine energy. It feels really nice. It's just a very pleasing feel for it. And there's just so much more to come. The more research we do, the more stuff we find, and the more we can help each other, and it just benefits the planet in its whole.
Yeah, I mean, the more you talk, the more applications I can see. I mean, you know, I think with what you just said, you know, we're talking mental health and all types of stuff, right? So
yes. Yeah. There's so many applications it's so open to. I mean, we're just still scratching the surface when you think about it in those terms.
Awesome.
It brings
awesome.
coherency to any kind of chaos. And so if you can think of any kind of application where there is entropy or rhythm or decay or mold growth, anything along those types of lines of thought, start coming up with ideas on how you might be able to apply this technology to it. Because like Phil said, there's we've barely touched the surface on what we're capable with this tech.
Indeed,
yeah, there's so many applications.
Sorry, you go. Yeah, awesome. So all the links for the boys are below, and like they said, get in contact with them. They're only too happy to have a chat, and they do have products if you want to buy.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Campbell. Just before you end it, Phil, Cameron, do you mind posting your email for me, both in the private chat quickly, so we can get a couple more of the real science and agriculture things scheduled? And also, do you boys have another 10 or 15 minutes to hang out after the stream? And there's a couple of people in the chat, like Simon, Jeremiah, that wouldn't mind talking to you quickly, and I can post the link for all.
I guess it's a no from Cameron. Yeah. He's out.
Cameron says no. But yes,
I'll be more than happy to stick around. Whatever questions I can help answer out or whatever is, I'm be more than obliged to help.
Appreciated.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time and your information and your openness and willingness to help. Push this all forward, because that's what we all need. It's all, we can do this, right? We've got this. I reckon. I always say we've got all the answers. We've just got to start doing them. So. Thank you both. Cameron, can you hear me? There he is.
Sorry, I'm back. I'm back.
We thought you'd done the bot when Bernie did it.
No, I'm happy to hang around for another 10, 15.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. And thank you, Cameron, for your time. And again, your willingness to help people and get this going forward. And thank you for everyone in the chat for being here. Thank you to the mods, of course. Amazing Hippie Shake, who may or may not have a birthday coming up soon. I don't know.
Birthday.
Well, it's in about a month. So we'll be talking about it in a few weeks. So maybe something even planned. Who knows? For our favorite Hippie Shake. But thank you all, guys. We love you all. Hope you like this, and definitely get out there and put it into practice. See what you can find out. And we'll talk to you all on the next upload. Stay awesome.
Have a good one.
What are you doing? Are you doing it, Bernie?
I'm doing it.
Okay, let's do that again. All right, guys.